Welcome to the Executives Lounge. This is your podcast host, Christine Fonner. We are in season 3, where we continue our mission to redefine leadership one amazing story at a time. The Executives Lounge is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. At its core, leadership is about impacting and influencing for the greater good. And this season dives deep into how leaders are making a difference in their communities across the globe. Let's get started. I am introducing Sheri Fitzner today. She is a certified hypnotherapist, Reiki master, intuitive tarot interpreter, and teacher who specializes in galactic hypnotic experience, past life regression, and connection to guides. I'm excited because Sheri and I have worked together behind the scenes, brainstorming and trying to find ways in which that we truly connect, because we knew we connected. And so this is the first of a series of Sheri and I unlocking ancient wisdom together to redefine leadership one story at a time as we enter this journey of remembering together, which, Sheri, welcome to the show, first of all. And secondly, that redefining leadership is such a big part of this podcast, but the journey of unlocking and remembering ancient wisdom is not something I've talked about on this show too much yet. And here we go.
I am so excited to be here with you. And that you captured all of the heart and soul of our conversations is leadership and ancient wisdom. It always boils down to that in all of our brainstorming sessions that we've ever had. So that was perfect.
And so today is special because as my listeners know, we have been busting out of the lounge in season 3. So season 1 was all about, really connecting with women on their stories and lifting them up. Season 2 really focused on redefining leadership and reclaiming words, reclaiming language meaning, and really asking ourselves, what is leadership and what are we going to build as leadership in community? And season 3 has just busted the lounge open and said, what is that? What is that community? And what does the future look like for all of us with that desire for love and belonging and community? And so the format has been totally different. And so for us, we are stepping into a really intimate space together where I am probably going to be sharing some of the most vulnerable, intimate, private moments of my own leadership journey as we walk into working together. And working together, by that I mean Christine's going into hypnosis.
That's right. A very vulnerable space.
Here's where Christine gets nervous again.
But you're doing it anyways.
And I think too, one of the things that I've worked on the last couple seasons of this podcast is recognizing that the woo isn't always woo, that science can support spiritual growth, that the unexplainables are sometimes very explainable. And the more we believe and the more we stop questioning ourselves, our intuition, our discernments, our understanding of the world around us and that connectivity and the energetics around it, the more we stop questioning all of that and the more we start believing, the more all of this interconnects and the more understanding we have of self. And so to my listeners out there, some of you are going to be like me and find nervousness and discomfort and disbelief in what Sheri and I might be talking about. But I'm going to challenge you to be open and to think about and feel about what we might actually be sharing with you. Because the reason for me to step into this space and say, as a leader, as a person who believes in connectivity of people and really actualizing together, as a person who truly believes that in community, the way to do that is to share. The way to do that is to storytell. The way to do that is to be vulnerable and say, this is my journey. and this is where I'm going, and this is what I know right now. And so that's what we're going to jump into today.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I always, I don't want to spoil the ending for anybody, but you may have started off very nervous, but when you walked away from it, were you still nervous?
No,
Not
I
a
was
bit.
excited. Yeah, I was excited for the possibility of like, and this is interesting too. I was going to use the word uncover. I was excited to uncover like what's next. There was a new trust there. When I started my session with you, I was so nervous. You could see it in my body language. I was moving, I was fidgeting, I was touching my face a lot. I was not making eye contact. I kept looking up or out. I was touching my feet a lot. Like I was just all over the place and stuttering and talking a lot. My conscious self was worried and scared of what would come up under hypnosis without any knowledge of what might come up. Like I was truly hesitant to want to go under hypnosis because what will I say? What will I experience? Like what will I share? That's what
Yeah.
I thought was the main fear, and that's what I started with.
And that's very valid because that is a really common fear. Like it is a very common fear that you're going to go into a trance like state, and the facilitator of that hypnosis, the hypnotherapist, is going to actually be able to extract information from you that you wouldn't want to offer or to share. Like there's this sense of out of control when you're in a hypnotic state, which is absolutely not true. It's actually further from the truth. You are, as the client, as the person receiving this work, always in control. In fact, if you're not in control, then there is no session. It can't work.
Mhm.
And so there is a fear going. And when that fear is present, if we're not going to talk about that, it's going to direct the entire session. So the fact that you were vulnerable enough to share that that was a concern of yours allowed us to directly work at it. And I do think in the beginning, it was the main focus. At the root of it, we discovered a lot more. Again, spoiler alert, but
Mhm.
but that was the very first ward that we had to work through within the
Mhm.
mind.
You're going to see Sheri and I come in and out of the hypnosis session and into our reflection session, where we really started to analyze what the experience was and what the process is. And you're going to hear this throughout this episode, where we weave in and out of the hypnosis session itself and reflecting on the parts and pieces and what they meant.
Where do you feel uncomfortable within your own body? Like, could you like pinpoint certain parts of you that are
Uh-huh.
like, oh, I feel it here because of this. I feel it here because of this.
Yeah, it's like sternum, right? It's like a little bit here and then like a little bit like fingers, like I want to move, like ha, ha. It's like when you walk into a awkward social setting and like Christine's like the ha. Like how do I make this not awkward?
When you start whipping out the finger
And then
guns,
I
that's
get
when we
more
know.
awkward, right?
Yeah.
So like it's like
Yeah.
this it's like excess energy. Like there's like like the movement will help me
It
be less
will.
nervous, right?
Yes. Okay. So
And that was really important. And I know that we talk a lot about grounding, we talk a lot about regulation, we talk a lot about breath work, we talk a lot about how to reconnect and ground and center in your body. But this is more somatic, right? Like this is more like reconnect with your body. Like take your feelings and ask yourself where in the body. And that was interesting to me because that did like kind of remind me to go back and like take a minute. And we kind of narrowed it down to like a sacral space. Tell me a little bit about your perception of that because I just remember being like, I don't know, ping, pang, boom, like my whole body was having these connections to what the words I was speaking. And so I'm curious from your perspective, like how did you narrow it to throat and heart as I was describing it? Because I didn't do that right away.
Right. So my background is actually in transpersonal hypnotherapy. So it's the connection of mind, body, and spirit. So my job is to immediately help you to recognize that connection between your mind and your body. That's a really, the mind and the body are continuously communicating. So if you're thinking a thought, your body is believing that that's a truth and it's going to have a physical response to it. So that's part one of that is me establishing that connection between the mind and body very early on. And now I want you to begin to interpret that scan. What is that scan telling you? Does it feel like it changes the temperature when it goes over that certain body part? Is that what's telling you that something is relaxed or not? Is it a different color? Is the sensation different? Just start to tune in to how that scan is sharing information with you early on so that you recognize how powerful mind actually is. The other part of that is for you to actually recognize the energy that is moving and shifting and has an opportunity to be either released or to embellished upon or expanded within the body. Because again, you are that powerful tool. The other thing is the arm thing. I love when you're like, I have this excess arm thing, and I get it because when I'm in a place of either speaking my truth or I'm really excited about what I talk with my hands all the time. And there's an argument between people in the spiritual community and between people that talk about like the chakras and the energy zones is some people argue that the arms are an extension of the heart. Some people argue that the arms are the extension of the throat. And I think that they're both. I really do. Because both the heart and the throat are contributing to one another. And you've mentioned this a couple of times just in some of our conversations. You're like, you'll get that in your throat, and that means you have to stop talking about something. That is your throat saying we're not clear on how we feel about something. And therefore, we cannot validate something that we're not sure of. And so I feel like I have to block this because I'm not present with this, meaning your heart. So what I was actually asking you to do was going against the nature of the way we were trained to respond to our throat chakra. And so I was pushing you. I was definitely pushing the boundaries there. And I was pushing you analytically as well, because you know that you are a beautiful communicator, that you've got words for days, and you captivate people with your voice and the intention and the energy of your voice. So the fact that you were having a throat chakra moment was almost and I'm not saying that you were prideful, but it's a point of pride. So your pride was kind of dinged in that moment.
I want to stop for a moment and say, like, why would Christine work with Sheri in leadership practice? And it's not just leadership practice. What I talk about in leadership practice is like, it is who you are. It is how you operate within the world. It's how you perceive the world. It's how you connect with others. So again, it's like reclaiming what leadership is. To me, leadership is just embodying your fullest potential for joy, love, and connectivity. And so, and leadership is your ability to impact and influence for the greater good. So when I'm talking about like resources and tools and strategies and skills for developing that within yourself, it might seem far-fetched to some people that like Christine's going to be like, yeah, let me find a hypnotherapist. That sounds cool. It's deeper than that. Like there are many resources and tools and strategies and skills we can learn. But what Sheri's touching on here is when my conscious, prideful ego self is in control, which is most of my world when I'm in the workplace, it may be, and look, my throat's doing it again. Ooh. It may be actually inhibiting me from fully embodying my whole self of being a leader because it's safe.
So here's what we're energetically talking about. You mentioned the sternum area, the solar plexus. It feels disempowering, right? When you're not in a place of authority or leadership, you're not focused on what it is that you're contributing, and therefore it feels disempowering. You've lost track of your contribution. You're not certain of your
Yeah.
contribution, and you approach your contribution as your sense of power, as if that
Yeah.
is what is your power. It's so not. So we have to get to a place of your recognizing your power without what you're contributing, because you are so much more than what you contribute. You're so much bigger than that. You just
Historically, I have chosen to lead community, to be the connector, to create groups, to host book clubs, to be in control. And I am in control of how I show up and help others feel a sense of belonging, to sometimes, often, a detriment to my own very intimate personal space. Because we're going to talk about this in a little bit too. I'm heading into a surgery. I'm getting a hysterectomy, and my pre-op, nurse is asking, like, who's going to support you on the way out? Not just physically, but emotionally too. It's removal of my feminine parts of my body, my female parts of my body is a better way to put that. And I started explaining who my support system is. I have my husband, I have some close friends here, I have this, I have that. And I was like, the truth of it is, though, I am very good at being in front of people, being convincing, being articulate, sharing my knowledge, sharing space, cultivating space for others to feel safe. What I'm finding, though, is there may be a limiter in my comfortability in being fully a part of that.
And the feminine is the direction of the energy. Which way do we want to turn? Which path are we going to forge with that masculine? But if we are not also being replenished and setting examples of being replenished in healthy, supportive, energetic ways, then what kind of a leader are we? And so there are times in our life where we're being tasked with setting an example of allowing energy to flow back through us to replenish us, and showing people how to alchemize energy that we're receiving and create something new within it. And this is being sick is a really good example of it. I've had a hysterectomy as well, and I am big Leo energy. I don't know if anybody has a Leo in their life, but we are pretty bossy, and we are pretty loud, and we're trailblazers. We're leaders. We know exactly where we want to go. But I'm not saying this is isolated to Leos, but I had a hard time receiving. And when I had my hysterectomy a year and a half ago, it really taught me a lot of lessons in that you have no choice. You can either do it gracefully and receive with open arms like the feminine, or you can fight it and make it uncomfortable for yourself. And in doing that, I had to learn a lot about me and the type of strength is required in order to receive and alchemize that energy that you're taking in. And I think that is something that that throat chakra is reminding you of. It's there that there's opportunity of growth within that feminine leadership role that you have exercised in so many other ways. And it's almost like this is the test. This is the next test in that.
I mean, what's really interesting too, and you and I have talked about this before, is I had cervical cancer when I was 27, and I was in New York by myself, no support system. And I did it alone for the most part. I mean, the secretary of the private equity firm I was working for at the last minute was like, I'm going to drive you to the doctor. Like, she knew more of what I was about to experience, and was the only woman in the office, right? Besides myself in this, male dominated space. But she saw how alone I was. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to drive you and I'm going to take you home. And I'm going to make sure you're safe today, because I just don't think this is a smart thing to do by yourself.
Talk about feminine leadership right there.
In hindsight, I don't even know what I was thinking, but I knew I was alone. Like, there wasn't a support system for me at the time. And I feel like coming back in, to the space of saying, okay, well, I have cervical cancer again 15 years later. And I'm doing it very differently. I do have a good support system. I do have people surrounding me saying, Christine, I'm ready to support. And I'm like, great, right? I'm not even resistant to the support. I'm like, great, bring it on in. I don't think it's a redo. Like, it's not like the universe is like, hey, Christine, let's try to have cancer again. Like, I don't think it's that. I think I'm recognizing it as I'm in such a different place than I was at 27 than I am now. And it feels really good. And maybe that's why, Sheri, I'm so ready to be this vulnerable with my community, right? With all
Mhm.
of you, with everybody that I have connected to over the years. Like, this vulnerability feels actually really good, even though you might see the little nervousness and the nervous ticks. Like, it feels really good to be able to say, this is what we all need and want and desire, is like this level of like wholeness.
So I think we get to kind of look at what is in the heart space. What is it that we're actually feeling, that we feel we're not giving ourselves permission because our throat gets clicked, right? What is it we're not giving ourselves permission to witness in our heart space? Meaning, how are we actually feeling about ourselves in a situation? And letting go of what it is that you think you need to be in every given situation. Like, this is a self-value conversation, it seems like, from what it is that you've already told me. And your relationship to your own value, which is solar plexus,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
why you're like unsure of who you are in any given moment, unless you're the direct leadership. Here's what I'm offering, because I'm very clear about who I am and my power when I'm doing that.
I think a lot of my time is spent in that leader contributor space. And so I really value the safe places to like just be, a lot more now than I did when I was
Yeah.
younger.
Okay. All right. So it's great that you have this awareness of how you want to feel. You want to feel safe. You want to feel safe in every situation, professionally, within your friendships, within travel, within, where you don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like you have to be the leader of or the guide in every given moment to feel safe. Like, it's almost like maybe that's a control mechanism to manage your safety in any situation outside of your friend zones or when you're alone.
It could be, or it's also like a way to try to be supporting others in getting there. Like, it's like like I know the feeling acutely, so can I create spaces where people don't have to be um, guarded or protected, or they can
Mm.
truly like find their own authentic spaces as well. I think that's part of it too.
So
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that I think we're experiencing it because you're ready to move on beyond just what it is you have to offer. Just your presence is enough for a lot of people. And in order for you to align with the work that you're wanting to do, you can't always be in a place of leadership and taking control of what's being expressed, nor do you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So this is that uncomfortable space where you're stepping out of it. And this is a time when I love to remind people that you were a different version of yourself back then.
Mm-hmm.
27-year-old Christine understood a world where she had to be ridiculously independent. And so the cervical cancer back then was nothing different. You were going to do it independently because that was the only option and you were capable of it. And you were, right? It was not comfortable. It wasn't the best route, but you did it because that's who you were in that moment. Christine now is a different person. She is completely different. And I think that that's worth honoring, because it's not a different space, because space we equate with a place, in that same apartment, in that same job, but you are a different person. and therefore understand that you have different needs that are worth honoring. And I think it's a really great place to look back at that version of you and send her some love and saying, because of who you were, I have brought myself into a position to be nurtured by people around me, to understand what safe, nurturing is, to be a leader and want other people to desire this for themselves. And I'm actually demonstrating ways in which people can do that for themselves now. Thank you, 27-year-old
Mhm.
Christine. And this healing process, I am going to honor you in everything that you went through. Um, you were an incredible kid and you did the best that you could. And because of who you were, I get to be who I am in this moment right now and honor her.
Mhm. I had talked about feeling like I've been on this exit ramp, and it's like it's not even like a it doesn't feel like a big transition. Like, if anybody has seen the tattoos I have all over my body, I always talk about like reaching a new phase of life and recognizing I'm different than the person I was the day before, and that's typically when I get a tattoo. This doesn't feel like that, like, aha. This feels like I've been on this exit ramp heading towards like a new horizon. And it doesn't feel like, oh, this was Christine yesterday and this is Christine today. It's actually like it feels like I'm starting to move off onto this new ramp that's going somewhere I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it was at this point in our conversation when we sort of realized that you're facing an initiation into a new phase, a new era. So
Mhm.
what if with the hypnosis, our only job today is to allow yourself to step into that place of ceremony's over and you're taking your first step off the stage. You don't have to even determine what direction you want to take, no matter what you're getting off the stage, right?
Mhm.
You just have to take that first step. And in order to do that, we get to sit still. Yes, be still, which feels foreign. It feels because even right now, your mind is going and going and going, right? And
Mhm.
that's okay because that's what makes you perfectly you. What if we allow your conscious mind to actually be a part of the story right now until it feels safe enough to not be? And maybe
Mhm.
that's all that this is today, is you just allowing your conscious mind to be a part of the story. Why fight it if that's what you are and who you are and how you've,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
okay? So you
Okay.
don't have, there is no expectation. You don't have to do anything. Maybe the goal today is for you to not feel like you have to fidget your hands. Maybe
Yeah.
that's, maybe
Mhm.
that's all it is you're walking away being like, I laid there and didn't feel like I had to move my hands.
Mhm.
That's a victory, is it not?
Mhm.
That meant you felt safe enough to just receive. And it does take that feminine energy of beautiful strength and surrender and submission into that mystery of the self in order for you to take that step, which means you're trusting yourself. And it's freedom. It's absolute freedom. And I have chills thinking about that moment. Surrender equals freedom as long as you're the one who's making that choice. And that's what accountability is.
Mic drop. That's it. And insane. Yes. This is why our work together is so good.
And so now we're just going to ask the conscious mind to be acknowledged for its wonderful ability to rationalize and analyze and make decisions about what's happening. And we're going to ask it to do these things later. We're going to ask it to wait until after the session to do these things. And it's going to move aside now so that the subconscious is able to imagine things now. Even if it seems like it's making it up, the subconscious mind's job is to just imagine in the form of pictures and sounds and feelings.
And the conscious mind can simply move aside and do its thing, while the subconscious can do its job of simply just imagining.
It's so easy to talk with you about this stuff. You know what? It's fun because you have I mean, we can get into the neural pathway. We can get into that kind of conversation.
This was a big process that you slowed down. And it also helped me realize why it's never worked before, right? I was like, oh, you can't hypnotize me, like, good luck. And it made me realize why. You are an expert in this. And that is really important to acknowledge in this moment, is
Thank
that
you.
I have done hypnosis before and it's never worked. And it's because the expertise comes in slowing it down and letting me be the driver. You're not hypnotizing me.
No.
You're guiding me into my choice to go into trance. And I think that is something I wrote here. It was like, it's hard to interpret this.
But I think what you
Mhm.
just said really supports what you said in the very beginning of our conversation, which is the fear. That
Mhm.
is addressing the fear of not being in control. And that is driven by the knower. We understand where it comes from. That's a symptom of the knower, and that's a
Mhm.
limitation of the knower. But what you just described, the way we broke it down was allowing the knower to be a part of the process. And that
Mhm.
was really important for you. It
For
absolutely
me.
was. And
Mhm.
all I did was present you with opportunities to make a choice
Mhm.
and analyze the information and allow the knower to make a choice without dismissing her. And I think that a fear of this whole thing was also the idea that you would have to abandon a big part of you in order to comply with something that didn't feel natural yet. That sounds like you were protecting yourself, doesn't it? That's natural. So why would we pretend and not acknowledge our role in your feeling like you needed to protect yourself?
You have the ability to choose whatever thoughts, emotions, feelings, and sensations you direct your awareness to. And now you're becoming more and more aware of your freedom to go beyond the limits of the physical body. In the realm of higher consciousness, everything that has ever existed and everything that can ever exist on the physical, emotional, or mental levels exists now as a possibility. And it's time to be intimate with your own mind and reaching the inner self.
Mhm.
And that's where you're actually, letting the conscious mind relax. That's where we give ourselves an
Mhm.
opportunity to shift, and why the trance is so important to the shifting of the neural pathways.
Right.
So,
So basically, you start doing the body scan at like 55, 56 minutes in. So, like, we really like this was a big process that you slowed down.
and it was really just giving you more and more opportunity to make a choice and to remain in control of your experience. And it took somebody very brave like you to continue to say yes. Okay, yes, and the next step. Yes, and the next step. That's what you were doing the whole time. At any point, you could have just said, nope, see, doesn't work. And we would have been like, okay, then it doesn't work.
Mhm.
But you didn't do
And
that.
there were a few times where I was very tempted to be like, "Still here, Sheri. I'm still here." Like,
And I would have been like, I
not
know.
working. It's not working. I'm
It's
still
working.
here.
Thank you for joining us today on the Executives Lounge and the latest episode. You can find more information about Christine Fonner at christinefonner.com. And you can find more podcast episodes on Spotify, Apple, the website, christinefonner.com/podcast, or LinkedIn.